You're clean, aren't you? Except for your tower. You're a tower junkie, Roland.
Oh boy. Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. If this is your first time listening, Tower Junkies is a podcast that analyzes, discusses, and above all else celebrates the work of Stephen King with a special focus on his magnum opus, The Dark Tower series. We discuss the themes, characters, and mythology of the series in Palaver episodes, and review the books and comic series in Kef episodes. We also discuss King novels related to The Dark Tower, non-Tower King novels, TV and film adaptations of King's work, and the latest news about potential Dark Tower-related adaptations. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com and follow us on every level of social media at TowerJunkiesPod. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and it's just me today. I'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, this is a big episode. This is exciting. Today on the podcast, I'm going to be gushing and I'm going to be subjecting you to my lunatic ravings over the latest news about Season 2 of Hulu's original series inspired by the work of Stephen King, Castle Rock. I'll also be talking about the surprise casting announcement of the Dark Tower TV series that's going to be premiering on it's close to getting a pilot order with Amazon. So let me try to just keep my wits about me on that. So yeah, the reason that I'm here solo is that Tiny had work obligations and everything. I was messaging him kind of throughout the day when all the news was breaking and everything about Dark Tower, and like he wasn't responding to me or anything, and like we had plans to record actually we were going to record our Pet Sematary review tonight, and it was kind of a loose scheduling. Like we were kind of going to play it by ear and see how it goes, and then kind of decide if we were going to record tonight. And we were supposed to do Pet Sematary and a Bandersnatch review for my solo podcast anthology. So anyway, so he wasn't responding to my messages. I was sending him news articles and tweets and stuff, like just ridiculous crap. And so it got close to the time where we usually record, and I hadn't heard from him, so I sent him a text saying like, "Hey, you okay? Is everything all right?" And he went on to explain that he's just been swamped at work and he kind of spaced everything. And anyway, that's more information than you guys need. Who cares? So he's not here. I gave him the night off, and he'll be back soon. So basically, this whole day has kind of thrown me off in the best possible way. I'm recording this Thursday, March 21st, and we just got news about the casting of the Dark Tower TV show, and yesterday we got news about Castle Rock Season 2. Basically, up until this point, up until 36 hours ago, I had a couple of recordings that I was going to put together and release as an episode of Tower Junkies. And when the news hit about Castle Rock yesterday, I was going to supplement the recording with something about that and then release it last night. But as if Ka willed it, I actually started an online course or online degree program. So I started school this week, and I had a bunch of stuff I had to do last night. And so I had planned to, my whole plan was, okay, get my assignments done and get everything squared away on the school front, and then go ahead and do all the podcast stuff afterward. By the time I got done, it was like midnight, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is going to have to wait till tomorrow. But fortunately, waiting until tomorrow has opened me up to talk about the Dark Tower. So those recordings that I had, I don't know how much I had. I basically had me and Tiny talking about the that #show.com's announcement from like February about the Dark Tower TV show shooting soon, and then a supplemental recording of me speculating about what Dark Tower could be, what it could mean for Amazon, and how just a bunch of just fanboy conjecture and everything. So instead of just dumping that recording and starting fresh with this one, I went ahead and threw that up on the Patreon RSS feed. So if you're interested in that, I mean, it's dated stuff. It's kind of nullified by today's news and everything, but if you're interested in that, go to patreon.com. You can just pledge $1 and you'll get access to the RSS feed. but here on the podcast, I'm going to be talking about everything that happened in the last 36 hours. So strap in and enjoy. First up, though, before I do all of that, I do have a couple of Stephen King check-ins to go through. Let's see. The first one I have is that I went to Books A Million just randomly the other day, and I was browsing the selection. I'm weird, and whenever I go to the bookstore, I always kind of obviously peruse the King section and everything. I ended up buying a heart-shaped box by Joe Hill, and I had a nice conversation with the clerk that checked me out at the register. She was talking about how she loves Joe Hill, and honestly, I've never read Joe Hill. I've never read Joe Hill's work, and she was telling me, she was saying that he is similar. Like, I told her that I heard that he has a similar style to Stephen King and to his dad, obviously, and she said that he does, but the way that Stephen King writes in such a circular fashion and kind of gets kind of lost in details and everything, Joe Hill's a lot more refined with that. So I'm excited to check that out. I think what I want to do, and this is just, I don't know. I don't know if this is entirely plausible or possible, but what I want to do is get Mike from The Obsessive Viewer and my friend on to review the Joe Hill novels with me and Joe Hill's work, essentially, as kind of like a separate, not separate, but like a side project review series within the feed of Tower Junkies. But we'll see how that goes. On that front, also, Mike, my friend Mike White, he finished 11/22/63, and I am so pleased and so excited for him because he loved it. Like, he thinks that it could be when the dust settles in like a year or so after he's kind of like stepped away from it and has let it settle in his mind, he said that he could see it being like his favorite book ever. He said that he's never been more engrossed by a novel, and I am so excited about that. And he's a teacher, and he is about to be on spring break from work here in a week or two, so I'm going to try to get it worked out to where he and I can sit down and chat about 11/22/63 on the podcast, so be on the lookout for that. Yeah, any other check-ins? We have a lot of stuff coming up. Pet Sematary coming out, hearing great things about that, and then in the summer, I know that Nosferatu is coming out on AMC, and I want like hell to do an episode-by-episode review of that, but I can't guarantee that we will be able to pull the trigger on that, just because I'm in school now and I don't have cable, so it'll be tricky to get the episodes, and yeah, and also I'm in my brain. I want to review Nosferatu the novel first, and I don't know when I'll have time to get that in. So, anyway, we'll see, but we will be still releasing content for you guys. I promise, as much as we can. And finally, for the last two things for check-ins, one is that I am about halfway through listening to The Stand. I've read this book a couple of times before. This is my first time listening to the audiobook, and I am so engrossed by it. I love the way, like, this is something that I tweeted about with Under the Dome and everything, is that I love how, particularly The Stand. Okay, one of my favorite shows of all time is Lost, and Lost borrowed heavily from Stephen King, drew a lot of inspiration. I remember on the bonus features on the Blu-rays for Lost, they talked about how they had a copy of The Stand in the writer's room at all times, and like, since I've been kind of casually revisiting Lost on Obsessive Viewer for our little Lost Point TV swap challenge, whatever we call that, I don't remember. I've been more conscious of the plot points of Lost, and because they've been kind of resurfacing in my mind, and it's just so incredible to see the connections that Lost made with The Stand. Like, there's so many little references and things that just feels like Lost just ripped it right out of the pages of The Stand, and I'd forgotten about a lot of that because it's been a few years since I've read The Stand. So, really digging that. Okay, so my final check-in for this episode, and then I'll get into all the news and everything, is that on the Stephen King subreddit, there was a post that was by a user who said that when my the title of it was, "When my old home was broken into, all of my Stephen King books were stolen or completely destroyed. Besides my copy of It, this is all I have left." It's just a picture of two worn, I think, Signet paperbacks of Salem's Lot and Nightmares and Dreamscapes. And then she posted a follow-up post just recently saying that someone had gifted her, from the subreddit, had gifted her a copy of Rose Madder. And so I sent her a message just saying, like, hey, I was really touched by your story and everything, and if you'd like, I'd be happy to send you a copy of a book or have one shipped to you or send you a gift card or whatever. So I did that, and so she's going to be getting a copy of The Stand on my dime. So I'm super pleased with myself for doing that. That sounds so weird and I don't know. But anyway, that was my good deed for the day. And if I made sure to make the gift card have an image of Tower Junkies on it. So if you're listening, I hope you enjoyed The Stand. If not, don't. Well, I mean, if you're not listening, there's no point in me talking. But if she's listening, I hope you enjoy the podcast and enjoy The Stand. So anyway, I'll put a link in the show notes and everything for the Reddit post and everything. So if you're in a giving mood, you can go ahead and check that out there and send her a message. But also, she's been receiving a lot of outpouring of support, and like she posted on another the books subreddit, which this sounds like I'm stalking her. I'm not, I promise. Saying that she's like talking about how the other user had sent her Rose Madder, and like in the comments, it was just amazing. Like people were like, "Oh, hey, I have a spare copy of Cell, and I have a spare copy of this. If you want, I can send it to you," and stuff. It's just, I don't know, just there's something about that community, whether it's the Stephen King community, reading community, Redditors, I don't know what it is, but it's just something that's really heartwarming that, that is a kind of thing that happens on the internet. So yeah, that's my check-in, link in the show notes and everything. So let's go on to the news for this episode, all the big news from the last 36 hours. Let's start off. I'm not going to start off with the Dark Tower. I'm going to go chronologically. There are timestamps in the show notes if you just can't wait for me to get to the Dark Tower news and give my spin on it. So first up is Castle Rock Season 2. So when Tiny and I finished reviewing Season 1 like a couple of weeks ago, he and I kind of thought about how we would want future seasons to go, and how there was speculation that it could be going to Sidewinder, Colorado, and taking place in the Overlook, and kind of following Jackie Torrance in the Overlook and everything. We were kind of mixed on that, I think. I've kind of gone back and forth on it since we recorded, but that's pointless. or it's not I don't know, it's not necessarily pointless, but it's a moot point, because we got news about the plot and characters of Castle Rock Season 2, official word of it. So here we go. In Season 2, a feud between warring clans comes to a boil when budding psychopath Annie Wilkes, Stephen King's nurse from hell, gets waylaid in Castle Rock. So, my God, okay, this is this is good. This is so much fun. There's a lot to unpack with this, guys. I'll get to the casting and everything, but just right off the bat, I want to say that Castle Rock handling Annie Wilkes, a young Annie Wilkes even, that could be so good and so incredible. Annie Wilkes is obviously the antagonist for Misery, and let me talk a little bit about Misery. We're going to be reviewing it this year for sure now, but Misery is one of my favorite Stephen King novels, and it's specifically because it is such an interesting exercise in the creative mind battling the personification of its doubts and its fan base and toxic fandom. And there's so much about Misery that is so just beautifully written by King. And Annie Wilkes is one of the most terrifying characters I've ever read. She is so just unsettling and unnerving in such a big way, and I am so excited to see that character make her way to Castle Rock. So I think there's a lot that can be mined from that. The fact that it's a prequel, it's telling the story from, a young Annie Wilkes, is an interesting one, and I'm very curious how it's going to play out and everything. So casting. Annie Wilkes is going to be played by Lizzie Kaplan. Lizzie Kaplan, who she's been in Cloverfield, Party Down, Hot Tub Time Machine. She's been in a lot of good stuff. I almost said good stuff too. That stuff's all like really good stuff that I really like. Masters of Sex, she was in. I haven't seen that. But I really like her as an actress. I've liked her as an actress for a long time. Oh, she was in Mean Girls. That's right. So I've liked her as an actress for a long time now, and I am super excited for her to be tackling the role of Annie Wilkes. I think that she could do a really good job, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm so excited because she is Annie Wilkes. Like the description and everything, basically each character in the kind of press release and in the news items has little log lines to them and everything. So Lizzie Kaplan, it says, Lizzie Kaplan's Annie Wilkes is a nurse and superfan battling to overcome mental health issues. So I think that that's a good, like, kind of meaty role for Lizzie Kaplan. It's interesting because Castle Rock Season 1 had Sissy Spacek playing a character who has dementia and Alzheimer's and who is battling her own, mental disorders and everything. So I don't know if it's going to, I don't know if it's like a not continuation of that, but it's an interesting parallel to draw that we have another character that is battling mental illness and mental health issues. Co-starring as Joy, Annie's homeschooled teenage daughter, who is starting to have questions about her mother's sanity, is Elsie Fisher. Now, Elsie Fisher came on the scene last year in 8th grade, Bo Burnham's directorial debut, and which was snubbed by the Academy. It deserved so many Oscar nominations. Elsie Fisher I had as a lock for a Best Actress nomination, but it didn't happen. She was phenomenal in 8th grade. 8th grade was my number one movie of 2018, and a lot of that is due to, first of all, well, really it's due to Bo Burnham just tapping into what it's like to be an 8th grade girl and an 8th grade student. Just the pressure and the anxiety, like it just tapped into something so deep in my soul. And Elsie Fisher just brought that to life in such a profoundly real and natural and honest way that it just, like, that performance in that movie just blew me away. So the fact that she's going to be in Castle Rock playing Annie Wilkes' daughter is insane to me. I love that, and I am so excited for what the season will happen, what will come of the season and everything. And just judging from everything, I'm worried for Elsie Fisher's character. We'll see. The next casting announcement, this is such a cool one, and it's so in keeping with, again, this is kind of a similar kind of parallel to Season 1 of Castle Rock, but Tim Robbins is going to be playing Reginald Pop Merrill, the patriarch of Stephen King's iconic crime family. Pop is dying of cancer and at a reckoning with his family. Tim Robbins, of course, played Andy Dufresne in The Shawshank Redemption, which I feel like it would not be unfair to say that The Shawshank Redemption is one of the most well-regarded Stephen King adaptations of all time. And Tim Robbins starred in it as Andy Dufresne. So it kind of seems like this is following, this casting is following Castle Rock Season 1 casting Sissy Spacek in the role of Ruth Deaver. They're kind of doing that a similar thing of casting someone from within the Stephen King adaptation universe to play a role in the show. Now, Pop Merrill, well, I'll talk about the Merrills here in a moment. So the next casting announcement is Garrett Hedlund, who was previously in, I recently within the last year saw him in, oh my God, Tron Legacy. There we go. He plays John Ace Merrill, Castle Rock's legendary bully. Ace is taking over his Uncle Pop's businesses and threatening a fragile peace with nearby Jerusalem's Lot. So Ace Merrill is so he, from what I understand, and I may be getting some of the details wrong, he is the character. First of all, I know that he is the character that Kiefer Sutherland portrayed in Stand By Me. So he's the antagonist of The Body and in Stand By Me, which is exciting because I love Stand By Me. And I haven't read The Body, but we will cover that in the lead up to season 2 of Castle Rock. And he also makes an appearance in Needful Things, which is a book that I have not read yet, and I believe that Pop also appears in Needful Things, from what I understand. We're hopefully going to be covering that. Also, this is a good time to say that I really, really hope that season 2 of Castle Rock doesn't premiere until like the fall, like late fall, just for my sanity, because we have so much stuff going on across all 3 podcasts. In the next few months. Obviously Castle Rock isn't going to be coming out in a month or 2, but I just would love to have some breathing room there. And if any reps from Hulu are listening to this, please, we would love screeners. That would be delightful. I'm going to work really hard to try to get screeners so we can stay on top of it, but that's neither here nor there. Ace Merrill, haven't read Needful Things, so we'll talk about that later. But Garrett Hedlund is a good actor. I remember liking him a lot in Tron Legacy. He has this good presence to him, and yeah, my one hope is that they don't make him like as I hope they give him some dimension, because I kind of feel like Stand By Me, and he's kind of just a not token bully or anything, but he's just like, he's kind of that greaser kind of guy. I don't know. It has kind of become a, not stereotype, but kind of a archetype, I should say. The 2 more casting announcements. Yusra Warsama is playing Dr. Nadia Omar, the Harvard-trained Somali medical director of a rural hospital in Jerusalem's Lot. Dr. Omar's rational and scientific mind will be put to the test. Super excited about this character. From what I could glean from the internet, she's Nadia Omar is not in the Stephen King universe, so she is an original character for Castle Rock. If I'm incorrect on that, please correct me. Matt at obsessiveviewer.com or facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod or at TowerJunkiesPod if you want to do it publicly on Twitter. So I'm really excited for this character because according to this description, she is obviously a rational and scientific person, and I love that idea, the idea of that clashing with whatever supernatural, paranormal, whatever crap goes on in Castle Rock in this season. I like the idea of a character just, being confronted with that and trying to wrestle with that. That's a trope of Stephen King's that is incredible, and I love that in any fiction. So I'm really excited for that. Rounding out the casting announcement is Barkhad Abdi, who was in Captain Phillips. He actually, I believe, got nominated or won an Oscar for that. And he was also recently in, Blade Runner 2049, which is awesome because that was my 2017 movie of the year. So we've got 2 people in this cast list who were in my top movies of the last 2 years. So if that's not great casting or exciting casting, at least for me, then I don't know what is, because that is super exciting. So, Barkhad Abdi is playing. He'll portray Abdi Omar, the tough older brother of Nadia. Abdi leads the charge to build a Somali community center that will deepen the roots of his people in Maine. So that's all the information we have about season 2 of Castle Rock. I'm excited to see what comes of it and what happens, and what these characters are how these characters are gonna interact and what's gonna happen. I can't wait. As you heard in our reviews of Castle Rock season 1, I loved the show. Like, I really, really adored the show because it tapped into so many things that I love. Like, it's a Stephen King show. It has that lost mystery vibe, and it's just it's such a great hour of television for my tastes. And I'm super excited to see what is to come. And you can be damn sure that we're going to have more of those stupid Castle Rock, Party Rock Anthem intros to come when we do review them. So, yeah. Okay, I'll put a link in the show notes to the Deadline article detailing season 2 of Castle Rock casting and plot analysis and everything, or announcements. To reiterate, there's no release date or anything, just as it's going to come later this year. Fingers crossed it's like October or November for my sanity, so we'll see. Next up, the Dark Tower TV show news that happened today. So, some background before I dig into this big kind of, I don't want to say bombshell, because it's a cat. Okay, if you're looking at this outside of the Dark Tower Stephen King fandom bubble that we exist in, just by, consuming Stephen King podcasts or creating Stephen King podcasts, by default we are within this kind of bubble. To be honest, it's not to be pessimistic or be cynical or anything, but it's on, like, to outside observers, it's like, oh, another Stephen King adaptation. Oh, it's an adaptation of something that was already adapted a couple years ago. They're rebooting it. It's a pilot order from Amazon, and it's 2 actors being announced. Like, on the surface, to the outside observer, there's nothing really substantial there, but it's kind of everything to us, and to me, like, at least I can't speak for everyone, but to me, it's everything. Background on the Dark Tower TV show also, a couple years ago at this point, this is 2019, so like in late 2016, early 2017, like kind of in the lead up to the Dark Tower movie, they had announced that it was going to be, that there was going to be a companion TV show that Glenn Mazzara was going to be show running. Glenn Mazzara was, I'll talk about him in a bit, but yeah, when they announced it, I remember the day that the companion TV show was announced. It was basically, I don't remember the exact date, obviously, but the day that it was announced, I was at work, and basically, at this point, we knew that a Dark Tower movie was coming. I believe we knew that Idris Elba was cast, and then it was going to be Idris and Matthew McConaughey. And yeah, and I knew, like, whispers that there was going to be a companion TV show. So I remember I was at work. When I was in the call center, in a call center job, and I saw the news, and like I just immediately texted Tiny, and I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on? What, like, have you read this? This is incredible." What they had done was they announced that it was going to be a television show that was going to have a season order at, I think, was it at NBC or was it also at Amazon? I don't think it was at Amazon. I think it was at NBC. But it was going to have a season order, so that was guaranteed 10 to 12 episodes, and that it was going to be show run by Glenn Mazzara, and that it was going to be tackling the backstory of Roland Deschain, particularly what's depicted in Wizard and Glass, his time in Magus, with Cuthbert, Elaine, and Susan Delgado, and the Big Coffin Hunters, all that stuff, Rhea the Coos. So, yeah, so that was super exciting. When they announced it at the time, they had this image that Stephen King shared around also that was a map of the Magus Barony, and it just said, "Let the legend in the what was it? It was a line from the Gunslinger. I believe it was after in the Gunslinger after Roland won his guns from Court. It was a line that Court said to him, and that line is me vamping as I find it in my phone. I think I remember it. Let the word and the legend go before you. Let me just confirm that. Okay, I don't have it on my phone anymore, but I'm pretty sure that that's the line. So anyway, yeah, so I was so excited about that. Like I was so like emotionally excited about that. And yeah, I was nerding out hardcore at work about it, so that was exciting. And then around the time that the movie came out and bombed, they were still talking about it like slightly. They had said that Glenn Mazzara was still attached to it and that they were still going to move forward with the TV show. And Glenn Mazzara actually said in a statement, okay, yeah, so like the day before The Dark Tower came out in theaters, they announced that Glenn Mazzara was going to take the position of showrunner for the Dark Tower TV show. And yeah, I'm so impressed that they're sticking to it and everything also, but that I'll get to that in a moment. By the way, to correct a previous thing that I said, no network was attached to it in that incarnation of the show. But the company, like the production company, MRC, and Sony Pictures Television were developing it and had the funds for a full season or 10, 13 episodes. So anyway, Glenn Mazzara said, he told The Hollywood Reporter, he said, quote, "I've been a Stephen King fan for decades, and the opportunity to adapt The Dark Tower as a TV series is a great honor. The events in The Gunslinger, Wizard and Glass, The Wind Through the Keyhole, and other tales need a long format to capture the complexity of Roland's coming of age, how he became the gunslinger, how Walter became the Man in Black, and how their rivalry cost Roland everything and everyone he ever loved. I could not be more excited to tell the story. It feels like being given the key to a treasure chest. And oh yeah, we'll have Billy Bumblers." So this was all back in August of 2017. So in that time, in the intervening year and change, he's been kind of mum about the adaptation, the TV show. There's been whispers here and there. I think Stephen King at one point said that they were going through with it and that they were going to reboot it and ignore the movie. And there was one tweet that, and by the way, I apologize if I'm reiterating stuff from previously on the podcast, but I think it's important to have context for it. So there was a tweet some time ago that was something about, I think it was a tree, like a tree branch fell somewhere or something like that, and then like Glenn Mazzara had taken a picture of it and tweeted it and said something to the effect of, "It's hard when you're working along the path of the beam," or something like that. And one of the, I think it was Amazon's like production people, or I think it may have been like a studio executive, had retweeted it and said, "Yeah, look at like our writers are really hard at work. Our writers really work hard, and even under dangerous conditions like that," kind of jokingly. But she had hashtag Dark Tower TV, and then that tweet was wiped from the internet. It was deleted, but it was still there because the internet's in ink. So that was maybe 6 months ago, I think, or maybe longer, maybe 9 months ago. But recently, that hashtag show, which we talked about recently, so I won't harp on it, announced that they were planning on production starting in April, and it was going to be filmed in Croatia, and that they were going to, make that the show was on track to be made. That came from, like, they had an exclusive. I was skeptical because I'd never heard of the website and other. I was so hesitant about it. So I had emailed Amazon and was like, "Hey, is this a thing that's happening? Because I love the Dark Tower." They never responded, so that's fine. So, yeah, and I did more internet sleuthing and everything. Go check that out over at the Patreon feed. It's yeah, just Anyway, that brings us to today. So, news broke today that Glenn Mazzara is the showrunner for the Dark Tower TV show, and it has cast Roland Deschain, and some articles don't say specifically that the other actor was cast as the Man in Black, Walter, Martin Broadcloak, what have you, Randall Flagg, but other websites do. So there's a little bit of crossed messages there, but it's kind of got to be it's got to be the Man in Black. So okay, here we go. So Jasper, and I think he's Finnish. So if any Finnish people are listening to this or know how to pronounce words, please correct me. But sources say this is coming from Variety.com. Quote: sources say that Jasper Pekkonen and Sam Strike have both been cast in the pilot, which is based on the Stephen King book series of the same name, of The Dark Tower. Strike will play Roland Deschain, also known as the Gunslinger, while Pekkonen is believed to be playing the Man in Black, also known as Martin Broadcloak and Randall Flagg. The series is said to tell the story of how Roland became a gunslinger in his first encounter with the villainous Man in Black. The project is produced by Media Rights Capital, who also produced the movie. Glenn Mazzara is attached as the executive producer and showrunner. The series was originally intended to tie in to the long-gestating 2017 film that starred Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey, but the plan now is for the series to be a more faithful adaptation of the book series. And then it goes on to say that The Dark Tower is one of several high-profile projects that Amazon has in the works, as the streamer looks for Game of Thrones-esque content that it can sell internationally. Other major projects on Amazon's development slate include a Lord of the Rings series, which has already received a 2-season commitment. J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay are attached to develop that series. Something that the article doesn't say also is that they also are working on an adaptation of Wheel of Time, which is a book series I've never read and don't know much about, but it is another like high fantasy series that has a very big, popular vocal fan base too. So, I mean, Amazon is it kind of seems like they're kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I hope to God that The Dark Tower sticks. Please let it stick. I need this, guys. So let's unpack this news. First of all, let's talk about the cast. Sam Strike, I have not seen him in anything that I'm aware of or conscious of. He was in the George R.R. Martin sci-fi series Night Flyers, all 10 episodes. So I'm gonna check that out and kind of get a read on him. He's Irish or from the UK or from England. I don't know. But anyway, he's a young guy. The show is reported to tell the story of how Roland got his guns and his quest in Magus and kind of the stuff like Glenn Mazzara had said back in 2017, the stuff from Wizard and Glass, Wind Through the Keyhole, other kind of flashback stories, The Gunslinger. So this is really interesting to me, and I swear I'm kind of all over the place. I'll get to that in a second because I just realized I need to talk about Jasper Pekkonen. But Jasper Pekkonen is reported to be playing the Man in Black. He was recently in BlacKkKlansman, which was one of my top 10 movies of last year. I think it was one of my top 10, right? Yeah. Anyway, so it should have been. And it should have got, Best Picture over Green Book, but that's neither here nor there. So he plays Felix in BlacKkKlansman. Felix is this very temperamental and just psychotic Klansman he's like the not quintessential, but he is the prototypical angry wild card character, or wild card like Klansman. And I think that his performance in Black Klansman, I rewatched a few scenes tonight before I recorded. I think that can transfer very well into Martin Broadcloak and the story that presumably this show is going to be telling. He is this nefarious, conspiratorial sorcerer that is orchestrating things. Like, I think that this actor could be unbelievable in this role. I am so excited for this casting. I think it is truly inspired, and I think that we are in for something really special, provided that this gets picked up to series and gets a long lifespan on Amazon Prime Video. Sam Strike, on the other hand, like I said, I haven't seen anything of his. I will report back. I'm going to watch Night Flyers and check out and see what he does or how he is. So let's talk about the show itself, like what we can expect. So it is going back and it's telling the story, the backstory of Roland Deschain. And so it's something that I've kind of wrestled with. Like, should they adapt The Dark Tower in this way? Should The Dark Tower make the jump from book to television or film by doing it this way? And another very popular Stephen King. We're not very popular, guys. That comes with the territory of taking 6 to 9 months off. But anyway, a very popular Stephen King podcast, the Stephen King Cast, had tweeted and said that he can't get, the Constant Reader host over there, he cannot get excited about it because he doesn't believe that it should be told chronologically, and that he believes that the Wizard and Glass story of Roland Deschain, it really only works as a narrative that gives context to the character that we already know in Roland Deschain, who is on the quest for the tower. And I totally get that. I absolutely understand that. And it's something that I'm probably going to be waffling and wrestling with in the coming months to a year, however long it takes us to actually see this damn thing. But I don't know. And another thing is that I've been very vocal about this, that any adaptation of The Dark Tower needs to start with the Man in Black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. Of course, it can still start that way, and we can still have a flashback. Like, this entire series could be a flashback, but that raises some interesting questions. Like, if it's a flashback, like, how are we going to see, like, are they going to cast are they going to tell a dual narrative of, like, are they going to, like, I don't know how it could be possible, because they basically have a situation where one of the most iconic lines of Stephen King's entire bibliography jumpstarts this story that is a 30-year story, a story that he told over the course of 30 years. And in those 30 years, he has expanded the mythology, the backstory, and everything. And in that expansion and the backstory of the gunslingers, of Gilead, the fall of Gilead, the Battle of Jericho Hill, the way that the world had moved on, the good man John Farson, all that stuff is backstory that we as Tower Junkies have been mulling over in our mind. And it's something that I truly, truly believe is very riveting and very much something that deserves the television show treatment. However, and I get this, and I'm wrestling with this myself. However, all of that is like the Constant Reader over at Stephen King Cast said, all of that story is telling context, is giving context to Roland's pursuit of the tower, not the pursuit of the Man in Black, to kill him, but his pursuit of the tower, his quest, his entire meaning for being. Like, the entirety of Wizard and Glass is a story about him him kind of getting the beginning stages of his urge to go to the tower and everything. So how do you adapt Stephen King's, I would go ahead and say, probably most difficult work to adapt? How do you go about adapting that, a 7-8 book series all about a quest for a tower, but make it into a television show about all the stuff leading up to his quest for the tower? Like, I can see it being an incredible challenge for Glenn Mazzara and his writing staff and everything, his quartet. I could see that being highly, highly challenging, but also, I don't know, my rationale, and this is in the afterglow of this news being announced and my excitement over it, because I read The Gunslinger Born, and the, like, all of the comics that depicted this stuff. And, like, the comics are written by Robin Firth, who is the authority on the Dark Tower universe. She was Stephen King's personal assistant or writing assistant or whatever her title was, but she was the one who compiled all of the notes and everything, and you know, is the keeper of the keys to the Dark Tower, you know, mythology, essentially. And what they did with the comics is they expanded all of the backstory that we have in The Gunslinger, Wizard and Glass, Went Through the Keyhole. Well, I guess not Went Through the Keyhole, because I think they came after the comics. But anyway, all of the backstory and mythology of the Gunslinger and Wizard and Glass, and made it so riveting and so incredible and so dense with just it captures the world of Midworld and Roland's, you know, world. Gilead is in the comics, and it's amazing. So all of that is to say, I don't really, as of this recording, in the afterglow of this news item coming out, I don't have a problem with them doing chronological or going focusing on the backstory. My rationale for that is that could be supplements to the book journey, or this could all lead up to a second series after this one is completed. That is the Dark Tower series that we know, the Dark Tower quest with Roland, Jake, Susanna, Eddie, Oy, and Per Callahan also. I just think that there's so many things that could happen with this, and I really hope that it happens, that it has its life, that it has this, that I hope that they have the opportunity to tell the story. Now I'm going to use that as a good transition to talk about where it's at in terms of the production. According to that hashtag show, I believe if that website's right, they're going to start production late next month in Croatia. That means hopefully we'll get more casting announcements, more news and information about it coming out in the coming months. But it's worth noting that all of the news outlets that ran with the story, that broke the story and everything, said that it's very close to a pilot order at Amazon. So that is, I don't know, maybe not ideal, but for those who don't know, the way that television works, the way that television production works, as I understand it, is that you get funding for a TV show or for, you know, a pilot. You make a pilot episode. For those who haven't seen Pulp Fiction, a pilot is the first episode of a TV series. This is what you sell to the network, what you sell to the company that is going to distribute your show. So they'll go to Croatia, they'll shoot the pilot, and then they'll take it to Amazon. And Amazon is close to a pilot order, so that means that they have ordered the pilot. They are, I don't know if they're technically funding the pilot or what, but they've bought the pilot from MRC and Glenn Mazzara and all that. Once they see the pilot, they will make a decision as to whether or not they will pick it up to series, which means that they'll give it a season-long production contract for presumably 10 to 13 episodes. If it gets picked up to series, great. They'll create the show. They'll air it on Amazon. If it's successful, they'll renew it. That's how television works. I wish that it was like Lord of the Rings and that they would have greenlit like 2 seasons right from the outset, but I've tweeted this before and I've said this before, but I'm under no delusion that the Dark Tower is as iconic or as prolific and widespread across our pop culture as Lord of the Rings. Like that, it never was, never will be. But I have high hopes. I think that let me go ahead and talk about Glenn Mazzara for a moment. So Glenn Mazzara is a writer who I have had a lot of respect for his past work. I actually just recently finished rewatching The Shield, which was an FX show from 2002 to 2008. It is one of my top 3 favorite TV series of all time. Like hard stop. That it's a great series of television, 88 episodes, and the ending of that series is one of the greatest, most perfect just end runs of a TV series I've ever seen. Me and Tiny are going to talk about it on Obsessive Viewer here soon, but anyway, so he was a writer on The Shield. He may have been like story editor or staff writer, I don't know, but he was a producer. So he was integral in creating some of the plots and helping, give his voice into the show. And it's worth mentioning, and I'm so tickled by this, but I think I may have actually mentioned this in the Patreon thing. But anyway, way back in like 2010, when me and Tiny were reading the Dark Tower series for the first time, we were reading The Gunslinger, and he had mentioned that he thought that Michael Chiklis would make a great Court. To play Court in any adaptation, and I was like, yeah, that is a really great idea. Like that's awesome. He's intimidating. He just has this gruffness to him that I think he could really do well in that role. And I noticed that someone had tweeted at Glenn Mazzara with just a side-by-side picture of Michael Chiklis and the artwork from the Dark Tower comic books that showed Court, and they were like, I think Michael Chiklis would be a great Court, and then like Glenn Mazzara had actually liked the tweet, so I'm like, that's awesome. I just think that's cool. I'm glad that someone else thought of that too, because I thought that was a really great idea for a casting thing. But anyway, Glenn Mazzara, he was a writer for The Shield, and then he went he was the showrunner for The Walking Dead in seasons 2 and 3. Yes, or maybe he left in season. No. It was season 2 and 3. Season 3 of Walking Dead, I think, was really good. It was the kind of prison arc and the governor and everything, and I think that Glenn Mazzara did a great job adapting that run of the comics into a TV show. How The Walking Dead is now and how it's perceived now and how it's doing now is neither here nor there, but I really liked season 3, and I really loved the end of season 2. Like the last episode, I thought that was really great. So I'm super excited for Glenn Mazzara. And also it's worth mentioning that I haven't read up on it too much, but he is a very vocal advocate for diversity and for like writers, the Writers Guild and everything of America. And I think that's really great. He seems like a super nice stand-up guy, and I'm so excited about this. Oh, okay. So I'll get to my thoughts on the series and everything. And the potential for the series. That may necessitate its own episode, which would be a super dumb idea on my part, because my thought is like, oh, we could sit there and talk about how we would map out the series and how we would want the series to go, which is a terrible idea, because why would we want to do that and build up our expectations and everything. But anyway, the next thing that I'm going to bring up here is that Glenn Mazzara has for months been radio silent as far as any word about the Dark Tower and his adaptation and everything. He has been completely silent about it. However, he has had for several months had his Twitter handle or his image on Twitter has been image from the cover of Wizard and Glass, and his cover art on Twitter is his cover image is the first 4 books paperback images cover art. And so it was just so nice to see when this news broke today, to see him just like a flood of retweets from Glenn Mazzara of different news outlets and everything. So I do want to mention that I was particularly, it warmed my heart particularly well with this, is that actually the last thing that he retweeted as of this recording was a tweet from Sean Ryan, who was the showrunner for The Shield, who obviously he worked with Glenn Mazzara on The Shield, and Sean Ryan was also the showrunner, I believe, for Timeless, the TV series Timeless. Has that actually been renewed or is it canceled? I don't know if it's still running, but anyway, and Sam Strike, who is going to be playing Roland Deschain, appeared in an episode of Timeless. So Sean Ryan had retweeted Glenn Mazzara and said, "Sam did a great job for us on Timeless, and obviously Glenn Mazzara and I go way back, so I'm very happy to see 2 of my worlds colliding here." And that was kind of nice and heartwarming. So, yes. So there was also a tweet that I thought was really, I was so surprised by this. So Glenn Mazzara, so a Twitter user named Kevin tweeted at Glenn Mazzara and said, "Please don't screw this up like the Dark Tower movie." And Glenn Mazzara actually responded to him, and all Glenn Mazzara said was, "They made a movie?" Which, first of all, I think that's hilarious, because I think that most of us are thinking the same thing. But I was so surprised to see him do that, or to see him comment and make that joke, because MRC is still producing the show and they produced the movie. So I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting and kind of funny and surprising. Also, this is super, super nerdy, but I tweeted my congratulations and support to Glenn Mazzara. He hasn't responded or anything. But it is by far the nerdiest tweet that I've tweeted in a very long time. So my tweet was, at Glenn Mazzara, "Showslinger, from our little corner of the Dark Tower to you and your quartet, we say in the words of Aunt Talitha, go now, we have broken bread, we have held palaver, we have your blessing, and you have ours. Go your course in safety, stand and be true." And I put a little emoji of a rose there, and hashtag the Dark Tower TV. So yeah, so that is the nerdiest thing that I've done in recent memory. But yeah, so let me talk a little bit, and I'll kind of close this out here, because I've got to edit this and get it posted, and I kind of want to dig into the comics a little bit now. But okay, so to round out this episode, when this news broke, I was at work and doing my work and everything, and then I was so surprised and so pleased and so excited about it that I was just like daydreaming a little bit too much. But I went down I work in an office building. I work on the 5th floor, and on the 2nd floor they have a cafeteria. So I went down there to get a drink, and in between the time it took me to pay for my drink and go back to the elevator, I had mentally thought of how this adaptation, how this TV show could be mapped out for several seasons. And I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it, and I'll be as non-spoiler as possible. But like, I mean, okay, so they're talking about having it cover how Roland got his guns, how the whole Magus thing, everything. So the backstory. And there's so much content there that they could easily make this a 4 to 5 season TV series, and hopefully of a very high caliber, no pun intended. I feel like season 1 itself could be the backstory, the backstory in The Gunslinger. Roland and Cuthbert, stumbling upon a conspiracy, and they're kind of coming of age, and how Roland was duped into taking his challenge to get his guns and everything early. All of that, like basically all the Gilead stuff in The Gunslinger could be an incredible first season of television that could absolutely be a great starting point for the series, because it's got so much going for it. It's got this other world that hasn't moved on yet. It's Gilead at kind of at the height of its power, or right on the cusp of the world moving on, because of actions that are referenced in the flashbacks in The Gunslinger. So they could do a whole first season that is introducing us to Gilead, to the Gunslingers, to Stephen Deshane, to the whole concept of the Line of Eld, all of that. And they could just do that throughout one season of television. Following that, we could have the Wizard and Glass storyline in season 2. Roland and his commates go to Magus, conspiratorial stuff. They, Roland falls in love and everything. The plot line of Wizard and Glass. After that, go back to Gilead. More conspiracy stuff. The Good Man John Farson. The fall of Gilead. The whole aftermath of the fall of Gilead. The last Gunslingers. The last Quartet. Roland's last Quartet. The Battle of Jericho Hill. All of that can be expanded and told in a 4 to 5 season arc of television. And then once they get to that point, once they, in my wildest fantasy, they tell those stories within 4 or 5 seasons of television, then they make either a season 6 or a new series that is a spin-off of that is a big time jump, that starts to tell the story of the books and Roland and his quartet seeking the tower. And that will give them 5, presumably, I'm saying 5 years, but that's just kind of, in my mind, 5 seasons is the optimal runtime of a television show. But it could be however long. But say, for sake of argument, that it's 5 seasons long. They would have 5 seasons of television to build toward the adaptation of Stephen King's most complex and out there crazy story. And you would have 5 to 7, however long, seasons of goodwill, assuming provided that they do this right, which I think that they're in a good position to do it right. I think you have all of that goodwill that you can bring in the crazy shit from the books, and I feel like people won't really bat an eye. I actually started watching the Dark Tower movie just on a whim a week ago, and it was interesting because being away from it for so long and honestly not really thinking about it critically, just kind of lambasting hate upon it, just on reflex anytime I thought about it or it was referenced to me, which isn't constructive, I know, but anytime I thought, I just didn't give it a critical thought. So watching it without that pressure, without that that kind of baggage that I would take into it. I wouldn't say it's good. I would never say it's good because it's not good. It's not a good movie. But what I can say is that I can see what they were going for. I can see why they made the choices that they did, because this is a story that if they went full midworld, full fantasy, in a movie format, like I can see that I think it would have worked if they just adapted the Gunslinger, but I'm a huge fan of the series. It's my favorite thing in the world. And if they had done that, that is lowering the amount of people who could be interested in it. Like, oh, it's a Western. Okay, I don't want to see a Western. Who cares about Westerns? Oh, it's fantasy. Who cares about fantasy? I don't want to see fantasy. That kind of amalgam of things, like, it doesn't really work if you pick one thing and go full stop or full throttle on it. What they tried to do with that was make it kind of a YA, mystical kind of thriller in the movie. And I mean, it was a gamble. It didn't work at all. I can almost respect that they wanted to do that they wanted to introduce the concept of portals to other worlds. The whole there are other worlds in these. I can almost respect that they wanted to get that established early on, if they were to do a full franchise, because they wouldn't want to shock people. They wouldn't want to go into it and just suddenly, like, the second movie is like, oh, hey, by the way, we're gonna have this gunslinger guy just go into the mind of this heroin junkie on a plane. So, you just saw a whole 93-minute movie of this guy wandering the desert, but oh, hey, he's gonna be on a plane next. So I can understand why they were hesitant about it, or why they were reticent for it. Something that I think that they could really now I know that I said that if they did full fantasy, full Western motifs and everything in the adaptation, they would lose some people in the ensuing volumes and everything. But I know that that's saying that, that's essentially what they're doing here. It's like, this is honestly going back and adapting Roland's backstory makes sense on paper. Like, I understand, and to an extent, I agree that it's not an ideal adaptation because it's not his quest. It's not showing the quest for the tower, which is what makes people fall in love with the series, is the way that he has to wrestle with his morality and what he is willing to give up in pursuit of the tower is the most it's what people love about the Dark Tower. Taking that away from it is what they did in the freaking movie, by making it about trying to pursue Walter and kill him, which by the way, I did notice that in the Deadline article they said that they were kind of giving background on the story, and then they were like, yeah, okay, Roland is pursuing the Man in Black to kill him, and I'm like, nope, that's the movie, no. So anyway, having said all that, I understand that, like, I feel like the TV show could be a good middle ground. Like, they can have their cake and eat it too. They can go ahead and run with the full fantasy Western sci-fi kind of idea, and if they do it right, they could make it so super engaging. Like, when I say if they can do it right, I don't want to see them, I don't want us to go through Gilead and see, like, oh, Pennywise written on and run down amusement park rides as relics from the old people or anything, and have it be just so overt and referenced and everything. But I feel like the heart and, like, what could be very important to this adaptation is in that set design, though. I think that if they made Gilead, they made Midworld, Endworld, all that shit. If they made Midworld into something that looks on the cusp of desolation, but having this vibrancy to it, because it's still, like, lively, like Gilead is still up, it's still there, but have it be more cleverly and subtly tied to, like, our modern technology in a way that isn't overt or anything. It could just be interesting little things. Like I'm thinking of like Citgo and like the gas and everything, like the oil and everything. Just have it look rundown and post-apocalyptic, but don't have it be in our face and everything. And I think that could be really engaging and really set the groundwork for kind of the otherworldly kind of stuff that could maybe be depicted later on down the line. So, okay, I need to get this edited and get to bed and get it released. So we will talk more about this stuff. I'm going to hopefully have Tiny back on when things die down with his work and everything. So hopefully we can get his opinion on it and everything. And yeah, so what did you guys think of the news that Castle Rock Season 2 is going to be steeped in misery? What did you think of the casting news? What do you think of the plot details and everything? Let us know. Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod, at TowerJunkiesPod on Twitter, Matt at ObsessiveViewer.com. If you want more long-form stuff. And let me know what you think of the Dark Tower TV news and everything. How do you feel about them going for Wizard and Glass and the backstory and everything? How do you feel about that? Did my opinion sway you one way or the other? I want to have a nice palaver with you guys. Like, what did you guys think? What are your expectations? How excited are you? And how worried are you that they'll fuck it up? Those are the things we want to know. That's your homework. Please contact us. Let us know what you think. And today was a great day. These last 2 days have been great days to be Stephen King fans and to be Dark Tower fans. And it's the year of King, guys. It's 2019. It's the year of King. This is the best time to be a fan of this man's work. And I am so glad and so thankful that I have a platform that we created to voice our love of this man's work and everything. And I love that, people listen to us, and I am so incredibly thankful for everyone who has downloaded this, everyone who is sitting there listening to this right now. I am so thankful that you are letting me and us here at Tower Junkies Pod, share time with you and share Kef and palaver with you. So keep the conversation going. Happy Dark Tower announcement, TV show announcement, casting day, and we will talk more in the coming months about this. As news breaks, we'll talk about it. So, as always, long days and pleasant nights, and may you have twice the number.
Tower Junkies is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to TowerJunkiesPod.com/archive. You can also like our Facebook page at Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod and follow us on Twitter at TowerJunkiesPod. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is just a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at TowerJunkiesPod.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at ObsessiveViewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out ShocktoberInIrvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to ObsessiveViewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find our flagship movie and TV review and discussion show, The Obsessive Viewer Podcast, at ObsessiveViewer.com and on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer. You can also find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone, and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and OV Anthology Pod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. Music for the podcast is provided with permission from Fingers T on YouTube. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
Kitty!